How's everybody doing? It's Monday, it's Matt, we're here on the Vinyl Head UK channel, and it must be time for another episode of my Download Memory series. We've looked at 2004, we've looked at 2005, we're on to 2006. And it was a good year, 2006. So again, just to recap, if you haven't seen the previous two episodes, 2004 and 5, this is just a chance for me to relive each year of Download, the Download Festival here in the UK at Donington. I've been to Download every year since 2004, so I've been to every Download bar the very first one, which, you know, I can't change it now. It'd be cool if I had the whole set, but I can't change it. So we're here to talk about my memories. This isn't a review. This isn't me, grading bands or the festival or anything. Just want to share good times, try and dig into my memory as much as possible, and just, talk and have some fun. So, 2006. This was my third download, the fourth download to take place. And it, again, for another year in a row, I think the third year in a row, was glorious, glorious weather. It was so hot. I burnt. I'm sure 90,000 other people probably burnt. It was a hot one. It was a great weekend. We were in the midst of a World Cup. England actually played on the Saturday. We had a little bit of a theme with England playing in the World Cup going through, which I'll get onto on the Saturday. But it was a good year. Headliners. So, main stage. We had Tool. Very much anticipated set of Tool on the Friday. Returning on the Saturday was Metallica, back from their third download already. We'd only had 4 downloads and this was their third already. Their second headline slot. Of course, 2004 was the year that Lars Ulrich was missing, so a complete Metallica lineup this time came back in the Saturday of 2006. And then closing the main stage on a Sunday, no other than Guns N' Roses. Or at least Axl and Friends. We'll come on to all of this a little bit more. Again, we had 3 stages, kind of 4 stages, 3 proper stages, and then a 4th stage, a bit like we had in 2005. So we had our main stage. Our second stage, again, was the Snickers stage. The 3rd stage was the Gibson / MySpace stage. Remember MySpace? That kind of died a death, right? But it was good for its time. It was a cool way to connect with people. But we had the MySpace stage, I guess 2006 was when it was still kind of at its peak. And then we had the Snickers Bowl stage, okay? So again, as I say, it's kind of we had skaters there and then some bands played on it as well. So, across the board, let's talk about headliners throughout, okay? So, Friday, as I say, we had Tool on the main stage. The Snickers stage, or the second stage, was the All-American Rejects. And then we had Ginger and the Sonic Circus on the 3rd stage, at Gibson MySpace stage. And then on the Snickers Bowl, we had Gay for Johnny Depp. Saturday, this was a good one. Metallica. As I say, headline in Maine. Second stage was Alter Bridge, going off sort of mid-main stage in 2005. They were up headline in second, so quite a jump up there. Killing Joke on the 3rd stage, and then the Snickers Bowl was Get Cape, Wear Cape, Fly. Sunday, we saw Guns N' Roses Maine, as I say. The Prodigy on the 2nd stage. Sick of It All on the 3rd. And then Viking Skull on the Snickers Bowl. So they were our headliners across the board on each stage. Now, just like the other videos that I have put together from 04 and 05. I've not looked too much really into research. I just want to try and remember as much as possible. I didn't want to be, you know, looking through reviews and loads of footage. I just wanted to go off what I could remember, because I think that's the best way to sum it all up, is just my memories of it. Some things I won't remember. Some things I very vividly remember. There was parts, if you've seen 2005, that I didn't remember fair chunks, whereas other bits I really remembered stuff heavily. It's the same with 2006, although I do remember a lot of 2006. It sticks into my head for some reason. I'm not sure why, but it was a really good year. It was a strong set of headliners, and a pretty strong bill all round. So as I say, the weather was beautiful. I did all 3 days. This was the first download I did all 3 days. So 04 was 03 I didn't go. 04 was 2 days. 05 went to the 3, although I didn't do the Friday because I had exams. But 06 I did all 3. And it was a good way to start my first 3-day download festival. So let's jump into it. Again, I went with my good friend Andy, who I've talked about on previous videos. Andy and I would go to a lot of gigs together and downloads together. Met up with friends there, school friends, friends I'd known through bands, stuff like that. So it's good to meet up with people and hang out and get burnt and check all these very cool bands out. So Friday, as I say, we're going off memory here. Now, throughout this weekend, I'm just looking through the lineup. I have got it just here on my laptop, so I can remember who played. As I say, I've done a lot of downloads. Sometimes they merge a little bit. I don't want to be talking about a band that I thought I saw in 06 and it turns out I saw them in 09, you know. I want it to be somewhat right, even if my memories are a little bit faded. But so yeah, looking through the lineup here, I think pretty much didn't go anywhere but main stage. We weren't feeling brave that year. We didn't want to go off. I don't know why. I kind of touched upon in the 04 video that my musical knowledge was still expanding. I would have been, I think, 18 maybe at this one. And so although I was absorbing a lot of music and watching the music video channels and reading through Kerrang and Metal Hammer at the time, those two magazines, and talking to friends about music, I was still absorbing a lot, but there was still a lot of music I didn't know. Stuff that I'm very familiar with and bands that I love right now, I had not much of an idea or hadn't even heard of them at that point. So I think we played it safe and stayed on main, just because I think the logic was, well, they're playing main stage, so they must be good. Rather than sort of going and exploring. I mean, just having a quick scan through the second stage, there's some really great bands that I wish that I had gone to see, especially at that era when they were probably, I think, stronger in that era than they may be now. You know, firing on all guns blazing back then, whereas now they've got a little older and they're maybe not as sort of on fire as such live. But you live and learn, and you know, it's all about learning. I love still now discovering new bands or older bands that I haven't really listened to or checked out, and diving into that and realizing just how good they are. You know, since starting to collect vinyl, which of course are a lot of my videos on the channel are about my vinyl records, I've gone and discovered artists already, and I haven't even been collecting vinyl for long. I've gone back and found all these amazing bands that I know a lot of by name or by albums, but not actually really listened to that much. So it's a cool time, and it was a cool time then, it's a cool time now, it'll always be a cool time to discover more and more bands and more music. But as I say, we didn't move much from the main stage. This will pretty much be just talking about main. I will go through who else played on second and third stage. We'll have a little scan through and talk about maybe who I would have liked to have seen. I've already seen one of my all-time favourite bands played on the Friday on the second stage. I wish I'd known about them sooner. Another one of my favourite bands, I don't know if you can see, Clutch, they played. But we'll get on to it. We'll talk about it a little bit. So, Friday main. Kicking off the weekend was Amplifier, a band called Amplifier, who I believe were a UK-based rock band. I'm going to be frank, I'm going to be honest, I can't remember anything about them. At that point, being young, and as I say, I think looking at that main stage, assuming that all the best bands are playing main stage, I wanted to make a point of being there on the Friday morning to see the very first band play. No matter who they are, whether I liked them, didn't like them, heard of them, hadn't heard of them, I wanted to be there, and it felt like the official way to kick off a weekend. So Amplifier were first on, and as I say, I can't remember really anything about. I couldn't even tell you what they looked like, what they sounded really like, anything like that. But we saw them, okay? We were there, we saw them. Following that, we had, this was a good one, Wicked Wisdom. Now, if you haven't heard of Wicked Wisdom, you probably have heard at least of their vocalist. And she goes by the name of Jada Pinkett Smith, who, of course, as many of you will know, is a very famous actress and is also married to a very famous actor. Wicked Wisdom, I mean, when I think of Jada Pinkett Smith, I think she was a hippo in Madagascar of all things. That's kind of what I think of. I think of her voicing this hippo, but there she was. And her band wasn't too bad, you know. Kind of I won't go as far as say new metal sound, but more leaning that way. We were on the, I guess, the cusp of coming out of that real new metal era, probably just a little bit past it. But it kind of had sounds like that. But I mentioned about her husband, Jada Pinkett Smith, and as I say, she's a very famous actress in her own right. But she is married to Will Smith. Now, we were watching Wicked Wisdom, and, you know, if you're back a little bit, you kind of, or I do at least, kind of watch the band or watch a little bit of the big screen, watch the band, look at the big screen. And looking up at the big screen, and whose face appears? Will Smith. Will Smith is on the big screen. It's like, what? And it turned out he was there. He was at the side of the stage. And it was funny because once the cameras had or the cameraman had kind of cottoned on that Will Smith was there, it seemed like more footage on the big screens was of Will Smith than actually the band. And obviously the director and the camera guys were just constantly on Will Smith there. He was just, you know, kind of getting in the vibe. I mean, Will Smith isn't really known for metal as such. He does rap and obviously actor. But he was getting into it, and obviously they're supporting his wife. It's probably one of the biggest gigs that they'd probably played, to be honest. I think they did Ozfest maybe, but yeah, the scale of Donington and Download, pretty big deal for the band. But yeah, it picked up on Will Smith, and it was really cool. I mean, you couldn't see much of him. He's quite a tall guy, and he was wearing his bright white t-shirt, so you couldn't really miss him. He was kind of stood forward at the side of the stage, but it was really cool to see Will Smith in person. Now, they finished Wicked Wisdom. Like I say, it wasn't a bad set. Off they went, and there was Will Smith chants. Loads of Will Smith chants. And he came on stage and he said something on the mic. He said, he was there for a couple of minutes. He said whatever he said. And I wish I could remember this was kind of way back before camera phones became what they are now. Social media was still not anywhere near what it is now with YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. So people lived in the moment more, which I like. You know, I hate going to gigs and as soon as a band comes on, all you can see is like phones in front of you, just recording it. Just live in the moment, enjoy the live moment. This won't happen again, just be there in it. Anyway, digressing. Obviously not really anyone filmed it, so this footage doesn't exist, and if it does, I've yet to find it. If you know where there is footage of it and you've got like a video, or you just know what Will Smith said, drop it in the comments. I'd really love to know, because I cannot remember what he said, and I'm pretty certain he came on and said a couple of things. But it was a cool moment. Definitely a cool moment. Soil were on after Wicked Wisdom. This wasn't with the original Soil singer, who I think is Ryan McCombs. He went off and joined Drowning Pool, and he came back to Soil later, but he wasn't with Soil at this point. So if you've ever seen, I think the most famous track is obviously Halo. If you've seen the Halo video, this long blonde hair guy, that's Ryan McCombs, who obviously wasn't with him. I don't know the name of the vocalist performing with him then. But not too much I remember about the set. Jada Pinkett Smith actually came back out and did Halo with the band at the end of a set, which was, you know, quite cool. Would have been cooler to get Will Smith out to do it, but hey ho. It's probably a song Will Smith had never heard, or maybe he did if his wife knew it, or if she, you know, she knew in advance she was going to be doing it. He probably heard Halo, maybe played it around the house. But yeah, she came back out, so it was pretty cool. You know, there's been a lot of sort of guest appearances over the years. I'm sure I'll talk more about them through these episodes. But yeah, a lot of guest musicians have come out in sets and stuff, which is always fun. Festivals a little bit different, you know, friends see each other, bands know each other. So yeah, it's a cool place to do a thing like that. Who have we next? We had, oh, here we go, Strapping Young Lad. The mad brilliance of Devin Townsend back when he was with Strapping Young Lad. Devin Townsend is a musical genius. Whether you like him or not, he is a musical genius. If you've seen his solo stuff, go and watch his Albert Hall show. That is a man at the top of his game. Incredible. Incredible stuff. It's not my favourite type of music, but I love Strapping Young Lad, but Devin's solo stuff isn't massively my type of music, but I can still appreciate how incredibly amazing he is with his art and his music. He is a genius. But Strapping Young Lad, in your face, intense, sometimes so intense you kind of can't pick out what's actually going on. It's back when the skullet was in place. Devin's obviously got his completely shaved head now, but he had the skullet, which was with the dreads, but like the mullet almost style. No hair on the top, big dreads. I think it was called a skullet. Cool name. And they were intense. It's the only time I ever got to see Strapping Young Lad. They weren't a band for much longer after this. This was going off for New Black. So the last record that Strapping Young Lad put out. And it was my first time being a drummer, getting to see the Atomic Clock himself, Gene Hoglan, who is an immense drummer. I've got to see Gene play later on with other bands. Testament, I got to see him live with. But incredible drummer. They don't call him the Atomic Clock for nothing. It was a real privilege getting to see him play, especially with Strapping Young Lad. I mean, just heavy. And he's very funny, Devin Townsend. If you've seen footage or if you've seen him live, you'll know he is very funny between songs as well. So yeah, Strapping Young Lad were a real fun, heavy time. Next we have Soulfly Max Cavaliera. Soulfly played previously on the main stage at 04, so kind of a similar position they were, maybe a little higher. I don't remember seeing them the first time, but I definitely saw them in 06. And it was a very, to the point, heavy set. Soulfly are known for their Brazilian elements, which comes into their music. None of these tribal patterns, anything. It was full on, gung-ho, in your face. They played Roots, which, I think Soulfly do most sets. They play Roots, Bloody Roots, obviously with Max from Sepultura. But they also played, they did Babylon, Prophecy, Back to the Primitive, Eye for an Eye. They're the ones I remember most. But yeah, all of those songs are pretty full on. And that was how the set list went. It was a hell of a set list. It really was. There was no, as I say, tribal break, anything tribally in the music, the Brazilian element. It was just like take all the thrashiest, heaviest, fastest tracks and stick them in a set. Which I've, kind of works at a festival because it's not your typical target audience. If you go to a Soulfly gig, you're pretty much a Soulfly fan, probably. Festival, it's fair game. People might not have heard of you, people will heard of you, people might not like you. It's your chance to win them over. If you hit a set list like that and hit it out the park, there's going to be a lot of guys that turn around and like, geez, Soulfly, they mean business. I'm a fan. And it was a great set list. Probably the best set list I've seen Soulfly play. Max, I still am convinced, I might be wrong, I'm still convinced that Max is not very high in the level at all with his guitar. I've seen Soulfly play another show at a different festival. Max, his string broke or his guitar went. He took the guitar off mid-song, waited for a tech to pass him a new one. There was literally no change in the sound. His guitar didn't drop out. When this happens with other bands, the guitar drops out of mix because it's not being played. Didn't happen with Max. So I'm still convinced that Max sits incredibly low in the mix. I might be wrong. But he's always surrounded himself with fantastic guitarists. Mark Rizzo with Soulfly. Obviously Andreas Kisser with Sepultura. So it doesn't matter where Max sits. He's got a great guitarist with him at all times. And yeah, it was a hell of a set list. Really, really enjoyed Soulfly. I think I will add, and this carried on throughout the whole weekend, the pits and the crowds were insane. It felt like everyone had a huge crowd. And it felt like everything was intense. All the pits were intense. I've been downloading in recent years where I don't think the pits or the crowd are quite what they used to be. I don't think it's anywhere near what it used to be. You'll get the odd band where, the pits will break up. Pit's pretty wild. But this seemed to be like every band at 06. And it was amazing. Just, just hardcore pits. Just how they should be, not just people stood around sort of nodding or banging their head a little bit. Just pits everywhere, just breaking out. Okay, on to next band. So we had a little bit of a change in pace, and we had Coheed and Cambria. Not a band I've really ever been massively into. I've seen them described as progressive emo. Who am I to judge? There's so many subgenres these days, it's kind of hard to keep up. There was only one song I wanted to hear, and that was Welcome Home, which was pretty big, not a hit, but pretty well-known song of theirs. They played that. I was happy. That's all I really wanted to see. Nothing really else in the set jumped out at me. It didn't convert me into a fan. That was Coheed. Not much I can say other than that, really. And then we stepped up a gear back up, and we had sub-headlining Deftones. First time I'd seen Deftones, they played in 03. Obviously, I wasn't there, so didn't get to see them. But a really good set. This was back when Chi was with us. Obviously, Chi was their bass player who, unfortunately, we lost a few years back. He was in a very horrendous car crash, which led him into a coma for a few years. He was getting slightly better, but unfortunately died in the end, sadly. But this was back when Chi was in the band, so it was very cool to see sort of pretty much original Deftones or the definitive Deftones lineup. But I remember him ending with 7 words, and Chino came down to the crowd, and I remember him taking a cowboy hat from someone in the crowd and wearing this cowboy hat during 7 words. And it just looked ridiculous, but 7 words is such a great track. It's enough to fire any crowd up. And as I say, the pit and the crowds for everyone were immense, so it didn't take much for a song to fire up an already very fired up crowd. I also remember Chino, I think it was near the end of the set, I might be wrong, announcing that they were having a special guest come out and join them. Now, considering who was headlining them following their set, which was of course Tool, myself and many other people got very excited that Maynard from Tool was going to come out and they do Passenger. Like, for a minute or so after Chino said about a guest coming out, it was like, oh my god, Maynard's going to do Passenger. No. Max Cavaliera came out and they did Head Up together, which was obviously, Max joined him on the album to do that, and out he came and did Head Up with them, which, you know, cool. It wasn't Maynard though. I would have loved, and I'm sure many people around me would have loved to have heard Passenger with Maynard, but he's pretty elusive. I couldn't imagine him doing many guest slots with any band. But it didn't matter, because following Deftones, of course, we had Tool headlining. Andy kind of left me for Deftones and Tool. He's not a great big fan of Deftones or Tool, so he went up on the bank, which I'm sure people will have seen on the Paradise City video, which I've talked about, Guns N' Roses, where it was, of course, at Donington, back in Monsters of the Rock days. He went and sat on that bank and left me down to watch Deftones and Tool. They didn't play masses of songs. It wasn't a long set list by any means, 12, 13 songs. But it was Tool, and Tool songs aren't short anyway, so, I mean, they still filled an hour and a half or so. Maynard, there's a cowboy hat theme, it seemed. Maynard came out, from what I remember, I don't think he was wearing a shirt. He had jeans and like a white cowboy hat, I think. I said I could remember a fair bit from this year. A white cowboy, and they opened with Rosetta Stone, which was off, or is off 10,000 Days. It's kind of one of the later tracks. It's kind of a weird track to open with, but it's Tool, you know, they make their own rules. And Maynard was kind of down at the front of the stage. I've seen Tool a few times, and Maynard's always been on a riser next to the drum riser and has been back there. He's not one to come down with the crowd or at the front, really. If you've ever seen the famous Reading Festival Sober video where he's, you know, where a singer normally is, there's not really any of that. But he did for Rosetta Stone, and then he took himself back onto that riser next to Danny Carey on his drum riser and sort of stayed the rest of the set back there. I won't use greatest hits because you've never seen like Tool #1 in the UK or anything single-wise, but it was a very well-known Tool set. They did The Pot, which is my favourite Tool song. Stinkfist, 46 and 2. Anima. What else did they do? Sober. They did Sober. I just mentioned it. They did Sober. But it was really cool. And typical Tool, there weren't any cameras filming. Obviously, I said earlier about the big screen, so people further back can see. They don't have any cameras rolling during the set. When I saw them 2019 headline, it was the same. It's just visuals on the big screens. You know, Tool with their very arty music videos. So it's a lot of artistic stuff going on with the songs, which is cool. Tool, I mean, I saw Tool in Nottingham. I took my dad with me. It's Tool supported by Mastodon. And you weren't allowed your phone out, let alone videoing or photo or anything. You weren't allowed your phone out. And I remember I had a message. I felt my phone vibrate in my pocket, so I just quickly got it out to check the message. And straight away, it's like a security guy, like, no, we'll confiscate it if you're going to do that. So I talked about living in the moment earlier, and I think that's something that Maynard and Tool kind of enforce a little bit, and which is cool. You don't get many bands doing that really these days, so good for them, you know, getting people to enjoy the visual and the music and the art as it should be enjoyed, not through a phone but with your eyes and with your mind, which I really appreciate. I kind of wish that was more of a thing. I would have enjoyed the 80s when none of this was a thing, just live in the moment and watch that band. But yeah, like I say, 12, 13 songs, hour and a half. And it was the first time I saw Tool, and hooked. You can't not be hooked. I won't spoil it, but I am going to talk with great joy about Tool the last time I saw him at Download in 2019. But that will be a few weeks. We've got a few years to cover before we get to 2019, definitely. We could even be at the next Download by the time I get there. So, that was Friday. It was a good day. I enjoyed Friday. I can say it was hot. Let's jump on to... No, let's not jump on. Let's talk about who else played. Okay. As I say, I won't go through everyone, but we will look at, you know, select bands. So, Snicker stage for second stage. Gajira played. They were the third band on, so they probably didn't have a long set, half an hour or so. But they played. If you've seen me on the channel already, you know my love of Gajira. We've talked about Fortitude, which has just come out. I love that band. One of my all-time favourite bands. I cannot get enough of Gajira. But back then, here's my case in point of not really knowing bands as well as I do now. So I wouldn't have known Gajira, but I wish I did. This would have been around from Master Sirius time, which is my favourite album. So they probably did Backbone or Heaviest Matter of the Universe, Flying Whales. Oh well. They were there. Never mind. Bleeding through, we had Clutch. Another one, as I say, I'm sporting one of my Clutch shirts. They played... a little bit later in the day. Again, I love Clutch. Quite a difference going from Gajira to Clutch, I know, but my tastes are quite eclectic. Clutch I really enjoy. Clutch I played a lot. I'm not too disappointed about missing them because I've seen them plenty of other times. And they always are a great festival band. They're a great band full stop, but a great festival band. They're one that you get your beer, you can chill with your friends, you can watch, you can have a good time. What more could you want from a band or a festival? In Me were on after, pretty high. In Me, they are still going, but yeah, they were pretty high on that second stage. They had a few bigger numbers, which were doing the rounds on the music channels. Atreyu and then All American Rejects. Never been a fan of All American Rejects. They are a band I've seen twice, randomly, both times. We're at Universal Studios in Orlando. And that is because Universal froze through like February, April, May time. Oh, February, March, April, sorry, I completely missed a month. February, March, April time, they throw on gigs every weekend. And it just so happens that both times I've been to Orlando, All American Rejects have been playing and it's free. You can be in the park while they play, and I watched a little bit and whatever. It felt like deja vu the second time, if I'm honest. What else do we have? Okay, so on the Gibson MySpace stage, second band on was Enter Shikari. I mentioned before, and I think there's another name. Yes, there is. There's another name on a Sunday who were very low and have got a lot bigger, but I mentioned earlier in a different video, it's interesting to me to see these bands in a lower position and watch them rise throughout the lineup over the years into a higher spot. And Enter Shikari is one of those bands. They seem to be more of a band that's suited to, say, Reading or even Glastonbury than Download, although, you know, they have a following when they play Download, but they seem to be more of a Reading, Glastonbury type band. I caught a little bit of Enter Shikari, a different Download, and it was okay. It's not my thing, it was okay. But yeah, second on in amongst a few bands that I've not really heard of, so interesting to see them down there where they were beginning with Download and working their way up. Nothing really on there that would take my fancy. Cathedral would. I like my doom metal. Cathedral are a real great doom band. If you haven't checked them out, go and check them out. They were on. Again, back then I doubt I really would have known them. So I didn't lose much by not seeing them that day. Saturday, the 10th of June, we roll on to our second day. And we had a surprise slot. Previous years, so 2003, we had a surprise set by none other than Metallica, who rocked up on the second stage halfway through the day. 04, don't think we had a surprise, and I don't think we did in 05. I might be wrong, but I don't think we did. 06, so we did. Now, when we have secret bands, surprise slots at Download, they are the worst kept secret in the world. This was, I think, one of the worst kept secrets in the world at Donington. But it was officially confirmed just before the set when the backdrop went up and the big Down logo was on there. And there we had it. Down were opening up. And, of course, got a hell of a crowd because it's Phil and Salmo and Rex from Pantera. You know, it is a super group. Kurt Wingstein, Pepper Keenan, you know, Crowbar, Corrosion of Conformity members. So yeah, it pulls a crowd, and again, Phil was rocking the longer hair. He kind of looked like Superjoint Ritual era Phil, which was cool. And it is always a great show with Phil and Down. No matter what you think of him, we won't talk about what's happened in recent years with him and whatnot, but just focusing on the music, Down are a great band. New Orleans is a dying whore. Probably one of my favourite riffs done by Down, favourite tracks. Played that. Stone the Crow. Did they play Stone the Crows? I can't remember. Bury Me in Smoke they ended with. They didn't do what they do now, where they pass instruments on to Tex or even another band and carry on playing. They kind of just came to an end on Bury Me in Smoke. But again, Phil just has control. He's intimidating. He has absolute control on the crowd. And just those riffs, man, there's those riffs. Wow. It was really cool. Really, really cool to get a band like Down doing that secret slot. I was happy to be there. And it was just like Bury Me in Smoke. It's such a heavy riff anyway. And it was just hair everywhere. Hair whipping around, hair banging. Just not even really pitched, just head banging, which was so cool. Just look around and just see everyone in unison banging their heads. So cool, so cool. Satirican, black metal coming up after Down. I always think it looks kind of weird seeing a black metal band in full corpse paint playing like bright, sunny stage. You know, I'm not a black metal fan, really. There's a couple of bands that I kind of don't mind. But I'm not a huge black metal fan. I love death metal, but black metal is not really... I don't have masses of knowledge on it and not really picked up many bands that I've really enjoyed. But we watched Satirican, and as I say, it was just kind of weird seeing them all like in the corpse paint, in the glaring sun on this huge, big main stage. They did look kind of out of place. There was a band that played more recently on main, which was Behemoth, who I think looked the part on that main stage and didn't look kind of weird and a bit odd. But yeah, I just don't think corpse paint in the glaring sun works. I think that is an indoor thing with the atmosphere and everything else, and pyro I think works well with black metal. But yeah, I couldn't tell you much about Satirican because, as I say, I'm not huge on this subgenre. Not that I hate it, just nothing that I've really picked up the ball and ran with. So don't expect too many black metal vinyl talks really on this channel, unless I suddenly hit a passion and then off I go, and Mayhem and Gorgoroth and Emperor and everything else. But it probably won't happen, just to warn you guys, okay? Blood Simple, we're on after. I didn't watch this band. I couldn't tell you anything about Blood Simple, I'm afraid. If you're a fan, I'm sorry. I don't know anything really about them. We didn't watch them. We went off and got drink, food, whatever. Had a wander. After that was Arch Enemy, who had already played, I think, in 03 on the main stage. Didn't see them, obviously, weren't there. Don't remember masses. Arch Enemy are kind of one of those bands, when I've seen them at festivals, where their sets kind of roll into one, which does sound bad because it makes it sound like they're not, I don't remember them, or you wouldn't remember much of them, but I don't know, they just kind of do. I like Arch Enemy. I like that genre of, or subgenre of music that they play, like the kind of melodic death sound. But they almost kind of went a little bit commercial, stuff like when Nemesis came out. Not that it's like a commercial sounding track, but they seem to get a little bit more mainstream metal as such, in a weird way. But yeah, I've seen them a few times at various festivals, and I'm afraid their sets just do kind of merge into one a little bit. I think I've only ever seen her with Angela. Obviously she's gone from the band now, and they have I forget her name, but the latest singer, I've yet to see Arch Enemy with her. But they did Ravenous, and they played Nemesis. They might have even opened with Nemesis, if memory serves, which, you know, as I say, it is a cool track. It just went a little bit mainstream, which is not a bad thing for melodic death, to get more people aware of it. There are some incredible melodic death bands. You can't really look any further than Slaughter of the Soul for a pinpoint of the definitive, for me, melodic death metal album. Go and check that one out, Slaughter of the Soul by At the Gates. But yeah, that was At the Gate. Sorry, it wasn't At the Gates. I wish. It was Arch Enemy, and that was Arch Enemy. At the Gates have played. I'll talk about them in a different episode though. Okay, cool. Here's a good one. After we went from some melodic death to a bit of grunge era, we welcome back with open arms the return, after many years, of Alice in Chains. I've talked about Alice in Chains on the channel already. We looked at Facelift, which was the debut record by them, and obviously Lane has sadly passed back in the early years of the century. And this was kind of dubbed as a bit of a small reunion tour. So William Duval had come in, and I don't even think at this point, and maybe he was, but I don't think he was an official vocalist per se with Alice in Chains at this point. I think it was Alice in Chains with a guest vocalist, who obviously then went on to be the vocalist for Alice in Chains. But they had done a couple of smaller stuff in the States. They had done, I think, a benefit show or two with people like with Heart and various other performers. And then they were doing a select few European festivals. They had done Rock am Ring and Rock im Park the week before. There is some very cool footage from Rock am Ring of James Hetfield coming out and doing Wood with them. We didn't get that download, unfortunately, even though Metallica were playing that night. But yeah, we had Alice in Chains back, which a lot of people had waited a long time to be able to see that band, forgetting about the vote who was singing or whatever, but just that core band of Mike Shawn and Jerry Cantrell playing these tracks again. At this point, we were still a couple of years off from getting a new album with William Duval on. So it was all the classics. It was, you know, Man in the Box, Them Bones, Rooster. You name a track by Alice in Chains, you know, and they probably played it that day. It was very much a greatest hits set, a perfect festival set, as I've spoke about already. And as I say, it was just so cool to see Alice in Chains there. A lot of people probably expected to never be able to see him live, or see him live again if you had done with Lane. But there they were. What more can you ask for, really? It was perfect. Absolutely perfect. Who do we have following? Stone Sour were on after. So Corey Taylor coming back again for, I think, the 4th year in a row. So 03 Stone Sour, 04, 05 Slipknot, 06 Stone Sour. He's getting pretty familiar with old Donington. This would have been on the Come Whatever May tour, which is the album that dropped, I think, in that year, or maybe the year before. Probably, no, it must have been 06. And I kind of lost weight a little bit with Stone Sour after this album. The first 2 albums really liked. I really liked Come Whatever May, but kind of, I don't know, just drifted away a little bit from them after. But this set was on fire. Absolutely on fire. 30, 31, 50 they opened with. There was no Bother, which was interesting. They didn't play Bother, which I think some fans would have been a little bit disappointed to. But we talked about Soulfly and just on fire throughout that set. And that's what Stone Sour were just like. Corey's vocals were on point. The whole band was on point. This is back when Jim Root was still with them as well, before he left. But yeah, they were just absolutely on fire. And they played during the England game. And I'm pretty sure Corey made a reference to the England game. I think. But yeah, they just were on fire. 30, 31, 50, Orchids. Come Whatever May the track. Yeah, just 100-mile-an-hour set list. And it's probably the best time I've seen Stone Sour. I've seen them a few times, but probably the best time I've seen them, I would say. Definitely that year. Following on from Stone Sour, and this kind of goes with another England reference with the World Cup, we had Avenged Sevenfold, who Matt Shadows came out in an England shirt, and the rest of the band carried out an England shirt with their name on the back, which I think's kind of cheesy, a little gimmicky, I don't know. Yeah, I know that England were playing. I'm a big football fan, so obviously keeping half an eye on the score, especially during the World Cup. But yeah, I just thought it was a little bit cheesy. I don't mind like little jokes like Corey throwing in whatever he did, but don't know, I just felt that was a little cheesy. I can't remember much about them. They played Walk by Pantera, which obviously would have drawn a lot of fans. 04, we got to see Dimebag play Walk, which definitely drew in a lot of fans, people running from every direction to see that. They played Walk, which I obviously did, recorded a cover of that one. They opened with Unholy Confessions, which now, of course, is the song they usually close with. Backcountry, this would have been going off City of Evil, which was out the previous year. The Rev was still with us, obviously another one that we've lost over the years. He was still playing with them on the drums. But yeah, as I say, it was a little bit cheesy with the England shirts, but hey, I'm sure plenty of people probably would have enjoyed it and got a little kick out of it, seeing them come out like that. Here's an interesting one. So following after Avenged were Trivium. Now, the 05 episode, I spoke highly of Trivium set. It was one of those I had to be there moments. It features in probably many people's top 10 download moments in history. And it was just incredible half-hour set. Trivium in a year had gone from opening main to playing sub-headliner to sub-headliner, so third down from top. And they had huge Marshall stacks, like, you know, if you imagine how Slayer used to be with just Marshalls. That's what they came out with. They, Paolo, bass player, looked like he was in a retro 80s mood. He looked with like the high tops and just what he was wearing. Matt grew his hair out a little bit, and this was pre-Crusade. The Crusade was getting ready to drop, so it was a Ascendancy setlist bar, I think Detonation. I might be wrong, I'm pretty sure they did Detonation off the Crusade. But if you know the Crusade and you know the story of the Crusade, the album kind of got slated, partly not just songs, but partly Matt's voice. Matt Heafy went from this pure Matt Heafy to James Hetfield. You'll hear it in the album, but this set was just him, yeah, pull out on the strings of my hair, yeah. It was like Hetfield was channeling through Matt Heafy. And it was like he was trying to find himself. I don't know if because of the recording of the album, that was now his vocal style, or he was trying something different. But it didn't work. It really didn't work. They played all these Ascendancy tracks with James Hetfield singing over the top, but it just did not work. It was such a shame. And it was almost after this amazing 2005 that they became a bit of a parody of themselves in a weird way. And it was such a shame because 05's momentum just suddenly didn't come through into 06. And I can't get past his vocals. I cannot. Just Hetfield is one of my all-time favourite vocalists from my all-time favourite band. But hearing Matt Heafy sing as Hetfield on those Trivium tracks didn't cut it for me. And thankfully, Trivium since have gone back. Matt Heafy is singing as Matt Heafy. Thank God. But yeah, I'm sorry. I like Trivium, but it just didn't work for me. And I was quite disappointed, especially after 05. I wanted them to come from 05, take that momentum and throw it into 06 and produce potentially Set of a Weekend. But never mind. These things happen. And thankfully, Trivium are resorted back to Trivium and not a Metallica tribute act. Following after Trivium, we had Korn sub-headlining. Korn Karaoke, I think is what it unofficially got dubbed. Jonathan Davis, maybe this is a curse of Donington. We saw it happen with Lars Ulrich. Jonathan Davis got ill, obviously the vocalist of Korn. And just like Metallica did in 04, the members of Korn came out and announced that Jonathan Davis was ill, but they were going to carry on the set, and so they had guest vocalists. Off the top of my head, we saw Benji Webb from Skindred, Matt Shadows from Avenged Sevenfold, Des Fafara from Devil Driver. Matt Heafy was back to his way through Blind, and Corey Taylor. Korn were at that weird stage where they had sort of members of Korn that weren't members of Korn. There was a guy in a suit and a rabbit mask who I think stayed with them for the tour and for a little bit, who played keys or something. Yeah, it was kind of a Slipknot-esque where they had these random masked members who were in the band but not officially in Korn. So they were at that point. But yeah, it was a memorable set just purely because it was different singers doing the Korn tracks. Some were better than others. They did, typical Freak on the Leash, Blind. I can't think what else they did off the top of my head. But I remember Matt Heafy did Blind, and he didn't look comfortable at all. Which I've heard him talk that Korn are one of his favourite bands. So it kind of odd. I remember the lyrics for Blind were on the big screens. So it was literally like karaoke. You could just sing along with Blind up on the screen. So it was kind of surreal. It was very odd. It was very unique. It was like being there in '04 for Metallica with Lars missing. It was a once-in-a-lifetime sort of gig. And seeing all these guest vocalists do a really good job. And I mean, it's pressure. You're singing for a massive band, probably with not a lot of rehearsal time, and going in front of a huge crowd and doing that. So fair play to all of them doing it. It wouldn't be an easy task, but definitely unique. And I feel sorry for the die-hard Korn fans who obviously wanted to see a proper Korn gig, just like we did with Metallica in '04. But it was special. It was definitely one that you could say, yeah, I was there for that. And probably maybe a shorter set because of what was going on. I don't know. I don't know what they would have played, but it was cool. It was different. It was unique. And then Metallica. There they were. This time they brought Lars. Lars Ulrich was there. They made up for '04. They were headlining, the four of them, James, Kirk, Rob and Lars. And they went through the usual 2.25 hour set. But this time we had Master of Puppets from start, Battery, to finish, Damage Inc. They opened with whatever they did, Creeping Death or something, I think it was. Played 3 or 4 numbers and then did Master of Puppets from start to finish, which was amazing to see the album played in full live in front of you. One of the definitive metal records, one of the definitive thrash metal records. And there it was in its glory. And then they did a few other tracks, One, Enter Sandman, Nothing Else Matters, stuff like that. On the encore, they did Die Die My Darling by the Misfits, which they brought Trivium again. Trivium seemed to be featuring, well, Matt Heafy definitely be featured a lot. He could channel his inner Hetfield with Hetfield channeling his inner Hetfield. We had 2 Hetfields on stage. It sounded messy as hell because there was multiple, it must have been 15, 20 guys on stage, not including Metallica. The gang vocals were all over the place. It sounded messy as anything, but it was for a quick 2.5 minute track and then they disappeared. Pepper Keenan was on stage from Down. Pepper is a great friend of James Hetfield. He came out. There was some jokes and banter between Hetfield and Pepper Keenan. And yeah, and that was Metallica. And it was cool to see Metallica as Metallica and not Metallica without Lars. Andy was happy because, of course, he hadn't seen Metallica before. His first taste of Metallica live was '04 when Lars wasn't there. So we had a 3/4 experience. He was happy because there we were. All of them were there. We got a full Metallica set. And we had Master of Puppets from start to finish. Which, what better album could they play from start to finish? Got to see Metallica again a few years later where they did another album in full, but we'll come on to that later episode. But Master of Puppets in full. There you are. That was Saturday. Let's have a quick look at who else played. Saturday main stage was very tasty. We had Sixth, we had Devil Driver, Henry Rollins, Billy Talent. All great bands. Henry Rollins, of course, I've spoke about. Check out Henry Rollins' vinyl videos on YouTube. It's what helped get me into vinyl. Answered a lot of questions of mine. Really great storyteller as well. So he was doing his spoken word. With Indentation, Opeth. And then Alter Bridge. I love Alter Bridge, but I wasn't picking Alter Bridge over Metallica, I'm afraid. I would pick Alter Bridge over a lot of bands, but not Metallica. So I didn't get to see Alter Bridge. They were back. They did a mid-main stage slot the year before. And there they were headlining second stage. I think their second album had come out by this point. So they were probably belting out Blackbird while we were watching Hetfield and Hetfield and Hetfield and Hetfield and Co. Gang vocals on Die Die My Darling. But you can't see everyone. There are clashes. You can't see everyone. Sunday. Let's jump on to Sunday. Now, Sunday, we got there early, Andy and I. We didn't see our friends. We went down to main stage to see the opening band. And it just so happened we got onto the barrier. And we started speaking and we said, do you fancy staying on the barrier? And Andy was like, okay. So we stayed on the barrier all day long. Normally I wouldn't want to do this, but we were young and foolish and reckless. We didn't know any better. And there we stayed on the barrier. We cemented our spot. We didn't eat. We got drink from the front where they passed the cups of water, but we stood strong for 15 hours or, well, it wouldn't be 15, 12 hours or so, whatever it was. Breed 77 opened. They opened main stage 2004 on the Sunday. Here they are back opening main stage 2006. They didn't play the River. I know that much because there was a lot of unhappy talk around us that they didn't play the River. But pretty similar to 04. They actually came on, I believe they did For Those About to Rock. They did AC/DC. They came on and did an AC/DC track. I'm pretty sure it was For Those About to Rock. Or Dirty Deeds. One of the two, I can't remember. It's a long time ago. One of those two they did, they opened with, which, you know, what a way to start or open up a main stage with a bit of AC/DC being played. Following them was Hatebreed. I love Hatebreed. I've done a Hatebreed vinyl appreciation video. Hatebreed brought it. They bring energy. Jamie Jasta is a ball of energy. And I mentioned pits. This was one where some serious pits broke out around us or behind us as we were on the barrier. You could see them up on the screens. You could feel yourself being pushed into that barrier. You knew a lot was going on behind. You can't go see Hatebreed and be disappointed. It's like Slayer or Motorhead. You know what you're going to get from them. You know what you're going to get from a Hatebreed show. It's going to be intense. It's going to be fast. It's going to be wild and rough, but it's going to be fun. You're going to have a good time during it. Dragon Force we're on after. I'm not a fan of Dragon Force. Never have been. Probably never will be. They're still going. Different vocalist. Everyone knows them from Guitar Hero. That's what I see Dragon Force as. That sort of power metal-y style. I'm not big on. A bit like black metal. I'm not big on. Just went through the motions. They were there in front of me. We're on the barrier. Not much I could do. Had to watch them. There we go. 36 Crazy Fists. Brock, is it Brock, the singer, came down to the front. Down onto the barrier. It was our first taste of someone getting in our face down on the barrier. I've never owned a 36 Crazy Fist record, but I do know the songs I like. Bloodwork, The Heart and the Shape are two tracks I really like. They played both of those from memory. Can't really... they did it at the end of August, didn't they? They would have played that. I'm pretty sure they probably would have closed with that. It was a pretty big track for them. But yeah, Brock came down. As I say, it's one of those bands which is quite almost nostalgic now. Reminds me of my youth. You see certain bands and there's tracks that just take you straight back to your youth. And I think 36 Crazy Fists are one of them. Not that I probably think they'd appreciate that sort of terminology being used with them, but they're kind of nostalgic for me anyway. To remind me of when I was younger. Or for now at least, not at the time, you know, these songs were pretty fresh. I'm talking about now. If I heard them now, it'd be like, yeah, it's kind of nostalgic act, but not boring at all, not incredible, but good. You know, I'd say good. I enjoy the tracks I like. It was cool to hear those. It's always, you get the energy for when someone comes down onto the barrier and they're there in front of you. You feed off their energy and they feed off it back. So it's quite a cool, intense moment just for that few seconds that someone's down. Someone else came down. Let's go on to that later, but someone pretty big came down in our face later. In Flames. They would have been on Come Clarity at that point, I'm pretty sure. I think that album dropped that year. So I think it was quite a heavy Come Clarity set. They did Pinball Map, I'm going to say, which is one of my favourite tracks. I was going to say Pinball Wizard, but that's a completely different band. But Pinball Map they did, which is one of my favourite In Flame tracks. So pretty happy hearing that. I don't think In Flames are the band they once were. I've talked previously about would have liked to have seen a band in a certain era. I would have liked to have seen 2000, 2001 System of a Down. I would have liked to have seen 1988, 89 Metallica live. I would have liked to have seen, you know, earlier era In Flames when they were at their best. Like when the Jester Race and that came out. I would have liked to have seen them then. I think that would have been a better experience. I think they've lost their way. I've seen In Flames a few years back and I couldn't believe kind of what they've become almost. Which is a shame, but being such a pivotal band as well, in their own scene and in their own subgenre. It's a shame really, but yeah, Pinball Matt. I still got to hear it. Lacuna Coil we're on after. I don't remember too much about Lacuna Coil. Another band I wasn't really massively into. Maybe not a band if I'd not been on the barrier that I would have watched, but we were on the barrier, so I did see him. Can't really tell you much about, don't really remember all that. Cradle of Filth. Funnily enough, I don't remember too much about the set, but I do remember they brought on this guy in a grey demon suit. All I could think of, do you remember Mighty Morphin Power Rangers? They had the Putty Patrol, I think they were called. The guys in grey suits, loads of them, who you hit them and they sparked and blew up something. That's what this reminded me of. I couldn't help but remember Mighty Morphin Power Rangers as a kid. They also had this woman spinning around on a big rope, and they had the guys with the angle grinders with the sparks flying out everywhere. And I remember more of that than I do of the set. Second time we'd seen Cradle on Main, 04 we'd seen them on that first day, and they were back again. I can't report really what they played, I'm sorry. If you were looking for me to tell you the set, go and check it out on Setlist's website. I can't really remember it. Bullet for My Valentine, a band that had previously played pretty low on third. So here comes that point about bands starting quite low, like third stage, and suddenly boom, they've made it main stage. So third down, so Bullet had jumped quite rapidly up into this position. I think 04 they did third stage pretty low down. 05 they were in the middle of that amazing Ozfest Saturday second stage, and here they are the next year. So in those like 2 years, the ascent was huge. What would they have been on? Is it the point? I'm not really a Bullet fan. A good friend of mine is actually their drummer now, which I'll talk about more at some other point. But Jason, a friend of mine, he wasn't with them at this point. So this is back when Moose was drumming from. Oh, great name for someone, Moose. Yeah, again, I'm not a massive Bullet fan. I'll watch them and follow them a bit because my friend is there with them, but nothing really back then caught my fancy with Bullet. Following that, sub-headliner, another Welsh band, Funeral for a Friend. I hate to say this if you're a Funeral for a Friend fan, but I found them the most boring band of the day. I really did. I'm sorry, I try not to slag off bands because I know there are people out there who are big fans. I wouldn't like hearing someone slag off Metallica or Motorhead or any one of these bands I love, so I'm not going to slag off Funeral for a Friend. They're not my thing. I found them boring. I was quite tired at this point because I'm hanging on the barrier from being there for 10 hours already. Hungry and probably dehydrated and burnt to a crisp, but just didn't do it for me, I'm afraid. And then they were quite high. I mean, this was when they were at their peak of their fame as well, to be sub-headlining, especially to a band like our headliners, segue, Guns N' Roses. Guns N' Roses, Axl and Friends. That's what we're going to go with. I can say that because we got to see Guns N' Roses with Slash and Duff a few years back. But this was Axl and Friends, okay? Axl Rose, amazing to see him. But that's really where it ended as Guns N' Roses. But this was a very memorable set. Maybe not for all the right reasons. Did they come on late? I can't honestly remember. I think they came on a little late. Axl's notorious. Arena shows, they were doing arena shows around this point where they were coming on ridiculously late, a couple of hours late, which is not on, it's not cool. People have trains to catch, they have work the next day, come on, it's not cool, not cool at all. I don't think they were that late. They came on, welcome to the jungle, to hear Axl, you know where you are. That gives you goosebumps. You could shut your eyes and it doesn't matter who's in the band. Axl's there, he's sung that, and it's like, here we go. We had issues. It wouldn't be a Guns N' Roses set back then if there weren't issues. Axl slipped over during Sweet Child of Mine. He kicked off. He had a tantrum. The other moment that really sticks in my head was the bass player. I don't know your name, whoever you are. Session musician, I guess. Maybe he was with other bands. I don't know. He got hit with a bottle. There was bottles being thrown. And he got hit. He took his bass off. He went to smash it, but he hit the cameraman. He didn't hit the cameraman himself. He hit the camera. Those things must be hella expensive. Not cool again. He stormed off. He came back on. He apologised. He said it wasn't on. Fair play. Thank you for the apology. But he didn't want to be have things thrown at him, which is fair. No artist wants things thrown. Rabid, drunken rock and metal fans will voice their opinion. If they want to throw stuff, they will. You know, festivals can be famous for things being thrown at bands. There's been many incidents over the years. So they will do so. So sometimes you've just got to take it. Not much you can do about it. But yeah, Axl was not enjoying himself. And it was such a weird atmosphere. He was going off. He slipped during Sweet Child of Mine. He stormed off. He had a couple of moments where he was getting agitated. He didn't look like he wanted to be there. And there was an atmosphere. Being down there on that barrier, it was an atmosphere and it felt tense. I felt like something was going to kick off at any minute. That's how I genuinely felt. I felt like riots were going to take place. Because you had a lot of fans wanting to see Guns N' Roses with Axl. And we weren't going to get what we wanted. And so it felt edgy, real funny atmosphere. I didn't feel comfortable through that first half. But the second half was a different story. It felt like a different set. Axl was enjoying himself. The band were enjoying themselves. Greatest hits galore. Everything you'd expect in that set. We had a couple of Chinese Democracy songs as well. But you name a song by Guns N' Roses you want to hear, it probably was played that night. A long set list, a really long show. It's probably pushing nearer the 3-hour mark. But, yeah, Axl, he said he was enjoying himself. He said like an hour ago, I wouldn't believe I would be saying this, but I'm having a good time. Izzy Stradlin got brought out for a few numbers as well. Obviously, original Guns N' Roses guitarist. And also Sebastian Bach came out, who was originally with Skid Row, and they did My Michelle. And Sebastian Bach was on form vocally. He killed My Michelle. It was not literally. He didn't really kill Michelle, whoever Michelle is. But the song, he killed it on the lyrics. He killed it on the vocals. Him and Axl worked really well together. It looked fun. It was fun. And as I say, the first half to the second half was night and day. And it, thank God, because it really did feel like something was going to erupt. It really, really did. But Axl got over it. And I mentioned 36 Crazy Fist. Brock came down, got in our face. Axl did the same. I can say to my kids and grandkids that Axl Rose's sweaty chest went right across my face. I don't know if that's a story I'd rather celebrate or not celebrate. I don't know. But Axl Rose, he came right past, and obviously we were looking, leaning, and he had this shirt which was unbuttoned and bared his chest, back when he had those stupid looking dreadlocks as well. And he came, and because we were leant forward, and obviously when Axl Rose is there, the crowd's going to push forward to try and reach for him. And of course we pushed forward and looking, and Axl's sweaty chest went right, and I could feel his sweat on my face. But You're in the moment. The energy is there. It didn't matter. The energy. It's all about the energy. And to have him there right in front of us. Axl Rose was there in our faces, literally. What a cool moment. Something I'll never forget. Probably the biggest person, artist-wise, name-wise, to ever do that right in front. There he was. I was quite surprised he did it. Bear in mind what Axl can be like. You know, a bit of a diva. But hey, there he was. He was having fun with the Donington family. And Guns N' Roses, yeah. Near enough 3 hours, I'd say. We got there in the end, thank God, because I wouldn't want to be in the riots if there were riots, if that thing kicked off. And that wrapped us up on Maine. Let's have a real quick scan through. Who else did we have? Second stage. God Forbid, Devil Driver, Fight Star, 100 Reasons, 18 Visions, Alexis on Fire. That's a band I would have really enjoyed going to see. And then The Prodigy. I had friends over in the tent for The Prodigy who did not regret missing Guns N' Roses at all. Prodigy levelled that marquee back when the second stage was in the tent. Man, I think that would have been a hell of a show. But we went with Guns N' Roses. We were on the barrier. But yeah, I heard a lot of good things coming out of that Prodigy set from people. Real memorable time for people. Good to see a little bit of British rock on there as well. 100 Reasons, for example. Third stage. That band that sticks out. Bring Me the Horizon. A band that have gone on to do big things. Again, I feel they're more of a Reading band these days. Maybe not so much a Download. People were throwing their name out there for potentially coming in as a headliner. This is something I will touch upon in later videos. I think we are running out of headliners. It's a lot of rinse and repeat with Download these days. We're losing these bands like Sabbath, for example, and Slayer. We're losing headliners, status bands. So people have been throwing out names. Bring Me the Horizon is a name, but I do feel they're more Reading territory with their sound now. They're not quite what they were sonically with the sound of the first few albums. But yeah, interesting to see there they were midway through third stage on the Sunday. And obviously they've risen again. Skindred, another band on the third stage who have gone on to do good things. High up on second on Maine. Fantastic show. Whenever you see Skindred, it's just a pie. And then Lordi, and then Sick of It All. And that was Download 2006. We got burnt. We rocked out. We saw Will Smith. We got sweat from Axl Rose in our face. But we had a good time doing it all. It was a good year. It was very heavy on Maine. We stuck to Maine the whole way through, but we had a good time. So that wraps up 2006. Hope you enjoyed. I hope it triggered some memories. Share some comments if you've got anything you'd like to put about your memories or 06 in general. I'll be back again for 07 next week, same time here on Monday at 8 p.m. Remember, go and subscribe, smash that like button, hit the bell for all the notifications on the content. Also, I now have an Instagram page to go with the channel. So a Vinyl Head UK, go and put that into Instagram if you're on there. Go and follow it. That's going to feature all my vinyls, music content, linking stuff with the YouTube page, all of that. So go and check that out on Instagram, Vinyl Head UK. Remember it, all right? Until next time, keep an eye out. More content with vinyl on its way. Until then, take care and I'll see you soon.